Without limits, we would be, do, become, go, achieve, reach, say, live, and die a much different person. Agree? I mean, I think all of us here, if we took off the limits on our life, we would be a much different individual. Right? I know I would be. I mean, if we could actually get past being afraid to do some things. If we could actually get past feeling intimidated or insecure over things in our lives. If we could actually get past our past.
Yes.
If we could actually get past what somebody else said we were or said we were not. If we could get past those limitations,
yes,
we would be much different individuals. And so that's just a statement of fact that I believe all of us would agree with. But let's talk a few minutes about what God's limits versus man's limits are. Because you know there is a difference.
yes,
There is a difference between what God says is a limitation and what man says is a limitation. So let's talk about this in the first one. God has commandments. Man has constraints.
yes,
What do you mean? Well, God gives us commands. For example, the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not covet. That, you know, all. I'm not going through them all, but you know what I'm talking about. God gives us commandments. Why? Because He understands the dangers and the results of those actions. God understands that. God gives us commandments not to limit us, but to free us. God gives us commandments because He actually cares about our livelihood, about our health, and about our wellness, and about all those things. So He gives us commands to protect us. Amen? But man gives us constraints. Man gives us something a little bit different. He gives us constraints on what we can or cannot do. And so I thought about this for a minute, and I couldn't really come up with a good example, and so I thought I would help give it to you this way. This is an understanding of constraints. Now, what I did was I did a search just in Virginia, because this is where I live. We're Virginians.
Yep.
I can't pick on anybody else's state, so I'll pick on our own, okay? Just in Virginia, here are some of the constraints that we have as citizens of this great state. There is a state law prohibiting the corrupt practices of bribery by any person other than a political candidate. Thank you very much. You may not engage in business on Sunday, with the exception of almost any and every industry that wants to operate on Sunday. Citizens, now y'all, if I don't hear you do this, I'm going to call somebody, must honk their horns while passing other cars. How many of us do that? I usually honk before I pass, but that's for a different reason. Okay. It is, I like this one. God bless Virginia. You know, we're an old commonwealth, so we got some leeway here. You know, some of these newer states, you know, they don't have the privileges and the things that we have because we are the first state, okay? But in Virginia, it is illegal to tickle women. That's a constraint, right? Now, because I'm an outdoorsy type, I kind of like this one too. No animal may be hunted for on a Sunday, with the exception of raccoons, which you can hunt till 2 a.m. No idea why. But raccoons are fair game. Let's break it down a little bit closer. In Culpeper, no one may wash their mule on the sidewalk. Now, we got some Culpeper folks here, and there are some mules in Culpeper. But if somebody is washing one on the sidewalk, I expect they'll call the police. In Norfolk, spitting on a seagull is not tolerated. And I like this one too. Women must wear a corset after sundown and be in the company of a male chaperone in Norfolk. Dana, we moved here because Dana didn't like corsets. From Virginia Beach area. These are all constraints, folks. I'll skip to the last one here. Just let's bring it home. Prince William County. No person may keep a skunk as a pet. So all you skunk lovers out there in Prince William County, got to get rid of them. I'll call the animal people on you. But you see the difference between God's commandments and man's constraints. That really was the problem with the law. It became man's constraints. God ordained the law. God spoke the law. God gave the law to the people of Israel. But they turned it into a legal system of man's constraints, not God's commandments. And there is a huge difference there. Huge difference in limitations. Amen? God has principles. Man has prisons. God gives us principles to live by. He says it is, God gives us these things that we are to live by spiritually so that we prosper. For example, tithing and offerings and all those kinds of things is a spiritual principle. Laying on the hands of the sick is a principle. Praying for those who are in need is a principle. Caring for those who are in need is a principle that God has given us so that we can live life better for ourselves and better for other people. But man gives us prisons. Man tells us what we can or cannot do for others. As a church, we have limitations because of man's laws in being able to help other people. Which is absolutely crazy to me. When a church wants to step into a situation and help the people who are in need, we got to cross hoops and hurdles and sign things that we won't proselytize and do all this other stuff. We just want to help. And at the same time, man's laws are keeping other people in prisons of suffering. Why does poverty exist in the world? Some of it has to do with natural causes. For example, in Africa, you can't really grow crops very well in most of the country. So poverty is an issue because of some of those things. But in some countries and in some places, poverty is a problem because of the laws of the country. If you keep the people poor and hungry, they will always look to you for the answer. Y'all know what I'm saying? So God has principles for us to live by, but man has prisons that keep us locked in those cages. Oh wait, here we go. God has a moral compass. Man has a moral agenda. Yes, this is my holiness speech, my righteousness speech, my dignity speech, my modesty speech. This is where this fits. God has a moral compass. He gives us a clear direction to follow for holiness, for righteousness, for living. Right? He gives us that. He has a moral compass. We understand all kinds of morals that God gives us. In fact, this country was built on most of them. Whether you like it or not, most of you probably do because you're sitting here, but whether other people like them or not, it's a fact that cannot be negotiated. This country was founded on the morals of God's holy word. Period.